so let's call the July 20th, 2020 Select Board meeting to order. Start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, we always go on our own cue. We're going to follow Stan because he gives us the best rendition and the loudest voice. So let's all try to follow and stick with Stan and try not to mumble through it if we can.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the United States of America,
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with life, liberty, and justice for all. We lost it for a second, but we found it by the end. We're getting there.
We'll get it.
One rendition at a time.
10 more times.
I'm going to get Armin Messier, a local town resident, the chorus teacher, down here to conduct us. Okay, so agenda item 2, warrants. Stan, you have the general fund?
I have the general warrants dated 7/7 through 7/20/2020. There's 132 invoices totaling $122,749.33. Here again, it's both years we're looking at. There's been some changes I don't understand. We'll start out with in Albans Museum, $15,000. We've got bought turnout gear for the firefighters, $12,391. Camp care, $12,391. The turnout gear was $4,129. Blue Cross Blue Shield, $16,746. And I need some help here. Northwest Dental.
Yep. Yeah.
What's going on? We have one group of bills for.
We got a credit for the month for last month because of COVID. All the insurance companies, and I don't know if you all got credit, but I did, like on my automobile, and so we didn't have to pay them for the month. Meanwhile, I took that portion out of the employees, their portion.
Yeah.
So by rights, we should pay that back.
Okay, that's why they had employees' names.
Right, exactly.
Dental.
That's the amount that came out of everyone's
It's the
paycheck.
amount that we paid out of our paychecks,
Right.
Yeah.
but the
But
employer pays.
I saw it
Yep.
and I said, well,
Yeah.
something is changing here. That.
No, it's
Only a
because,
one-time thing,
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
hopefully.
So we're just returning money.
The town, the employee portion,
Yeah.
and the town portion stayed in that cost center.
Alan's here, so I see one for road plates. I was gonna make a joke, but it's not appropriate.
Thank you.
So what is road plates, Alan?
Road plates is a 1-inch thick piece of steel. They're 6 feet wide by 15.5 feet long. I bought 2 of those. So when we're doing cross culverts or any other projects, we can lay them over the hole, keep traffic moving, and keep the employees safe. That way we don't have cave-ins or anything like that happening to our employees.
Thank you. I think that's a good way to spend our money for safety reasons.
He has pictures that are pretty impressive because we had a tandem going over it, then you don't have to, it saves time on the project as well.
I'm sure. And the people working with feel better too. Northwest Solid Waste, we paid their 2021 $6,442. The same thing with Northwest Regional Planning, it's another $6,840. So that's about 50% or 50 of the invoices, that amount of money. So I would make a motion that we accept the warrants for the amount of $122,749.33.
Second. Any discussion or questions? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Perfect. So Jessica, you have a couple of warrants?
Okay, I have the industrial park warrant dated July 20th, 2020 for $887.09. And then a second one, also July 20th, 2020, the infrastructure development warrant for a total of $28,681.83. And that's broken down, the salt shed, it looks like that's $3,250.90, and then the DPW Building Cost Center to Connor Construction is $25,430.93.
That's just punch list items, Alan?
Yep.
Nice.
So I'll make a motion to approve these two warrants.
Perfect.
I'll second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aaron, you have payroll?
I do. I have two payroll warrants, one dated July 10th, 2020, and the other dated July 17th, 2020. The one dated July 10th, 2020 is for $54,302.26. And the one dated July 17th, 2020 is dated $24,252.11. And the one question I had, I think the difference, because typically the payrolls are closer to the 17th, so there was more checks in the one from July 10th, and just for explanation for folks, what was the difference?
Fire department.
Fire department, there we
Second
go.
quarter.
Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah, fire department.
there we go. All right, well, I'll make a motion to approve the two payroll warrants from July 10th and July 17th of this year.
Second.
Any
I'll
discussion?
just make a quick comment.
Yep.
Whoever
Yep.
does the payroll, if you look at page 2,
Mm-hmm.
and like on this one, page 2 went from April 1st to July 5th.
Mm-hmm.
There was a 3-month period, and it pretty much tells you it's
Oh,
for the
yep.
quarter.
Yep,
Yeah.
And just short, you don't have to go look at the number of checks.
yep. Thanks.
Also, just in these, I didn't see a page to sign.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
You can just sign at the bottom.
Just
Yeah, we'll
sign
just
on
sign
paper.
it.
I
Yeah.
just didn't have the lines. It's been so busy. Sorry.
You're doing good.
It's still official without the
All right.
signature line.
So we have a motion and a second. Any more comments,
No, I'm good.
questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now we're gonna move on to some minutes. We have the regular July 6th meeting. Anybody have any revisions requested or anyone wanna make any motions?
I'll make a motion, we approve the select board minutes for July 6, 2020.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, so public comment, agenda item 4, public comment. Anybody like to make a public comment?
The only comment I'd like to make, this is Jackie Brown, is that it's really hard to hear you guys. I've got my speakers up 100%, but I can hear you but not hear you. Just letting you know.
Is this
Thank you.
is this better if I raise my voice a little bit, Jackie?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, alright.
So we'll have to talk about
Yeah, we'll talk like this.
doing that. He's muffling you too.
Yeah. Forget the masks. If we slip back into that, Jackie, feel free to chime in at any time and ask us to speak louder.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the heads up. Appreciate it. So public comment. Okay, hearing none, let's move on to agenda item 5, the municipal tax rate. So we have our calculations in, the grand list is in, Anna's done all of her expert calculations. So we have to approve a municipal tax rate of 38.89 cents per hundred and a local tax rate of, what is that? That's
Two, almost.
that's
It's not even,
0.0021.
it's not even a penny.
yeah, no, it's a little over 0.2 of a penny.
Yep.
So does anybody have any discussion they'd like to have, or would anybody like to make any motions to approve the tax rate? The total tax rate for this year for the town is 39.1 cents per hundred. That's what's in front of us.
What was it last year?
The increase, for the municipal rate is, let me see, almost, it's 2.5 cents increase. And that's, on a $200,000 house, that's $52 a year. Last year's tax rate total, including, local, was 0.3650.
The year before that, we were 37 point something cents. We went down last year, and it was that that wasn't a sustainable.
I think we had that police contract increase though,
Mm.
that added a lot to our budget.
That 1 year, and then we came down when that came
Yeah.
out, and then we went back up. So really, I mean, if you go a year-to-year average, it the homestead tax rate for the education rate is
That's-
homestead is $1.4435 100.
I think it's important to say that that's set by the state of
That
Vermont.
yeah, this is nothing that we're setting. That's just what we were notified from the state. And then the non-homestead tax rate, if anybody's at home taking notes, is $1.6093 per 100. So, anybody want to make a motion to approve the local rate?
I'll make a motion to approve the local tax rate for the year 2021 in the amount of 0.3910 cents.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any questions? No?
Thank you, Anna.
You're welcome.
The tax bills this
Oh.
week, next week,
No, tomorrow.
tomorrow.
Whoa.
Wow.
We're about a week late.
Wow, given all things considered.
But the public has 30 days.
Yes, I will give them for the August payment 30 days, but the other 3 due dates will remain the same.
So they get 30 days from the date they receive the bill.
No, 30 dates from tomorrow. I
From
run them
tomorrow.
tomorrow and
Okay.
I'll get them in the mail.
Yep. Okay, does anybody have any questions for Anna about taxes? Our delinquencies look fairly normal, if not better than normal.
Yep.
So, knock on wood, we're doing fairly well weathering COVID. Okay, so if nobody has anything for Anna. We'll move on to agenda item 6, the town manager's report.
So the first item is the parks ordinance. We discussed it. I think there's some consensus last select board meeting, and so those changes should be reflected in your final copy in front of you. Change is fairly minor, but so there shouldn't be any questions, I hope, but let me know if there are. You have a clean copy in front of you. I'm trying to remember what section it was. We added, the horseback riding on the last page, and then it was also listed in the section on activities prohibited.
And carrying a loaded firearm.
Right,
Mhm.
and the carrying on 6.4.8.
Okay, that's what I was looking for, 648.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Does that work?
Mhm.
Okay. Anybody want to make any motions?
I'll make a motion to approve the parks ordinance.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so we'll sign this when we sign warrants. Thank you.
Awesome. So the second item, I should number these actually, is salt shed update. We did go out to bid as the state allowed us to in early July. The bids are due this coming week, and Matt, believes we're gonna get at least 4 different bids. So we're gonna open those publicly and then forward a recommendation to you after he has time to evaluate them.
Okay.
With the completion date, he's hopeful that it's November.
Are you gonna have to mix some stuff down here, Alan, to be ready, or you think you'll be able to?
I think it's safe to say I'll be working out of that salt shed, the old one.
So why don't we notify SASSA that that's probably not looking like it's gonna happen for this year? If they wanted to be in around Thanksgiving and they had some updating to do with the electrical. Probably be fair to,
I don't know if it was an all or nothing. Wasn't clear to me. I have
Yeah.
notified them that that's when, that it was later than we expected, but, it wasn't clear to me if it was an all or nothing. Like if they couldn't get in by Thanksgiving, they didn't wanna do it at all, but
Right, that's what they said.
they didn't wanna do it at all. Okay,
but we can reach out and maybe
Okay,
they'll change their
sure.
position on it. And maybe there's some work that we could still agree to let them do, on the exterior to get ready for some lighting upgrades or something. if we got to that point.
Mhm.
You know, we'll see what the response is. Okay. Do we have any questions for Carrie about the salt shed?
Well, I do, but I think we'll have that discussion a little bit later. Because I just heard some more money floating out, and what we showed was $500,000 to $1 million. If they come in a little bit, we're on that low end with money right now. So I don't know what the bids are gonna do.
Well, we'll get them next week and we'll have more of an answer and we'll know.
But right, next meeting, we will.
Yeah, we'll go from there.
We also had money in a couple other areas that we can use.
We had a total amount of money, and we can't exceed the total amount, no matter where we got it from. It's,
Well, there are a few accounts that need to be cleaned up, like we're using, the thing I argue against every time it comes up. Come on
Impact
now.
fees?
Yes. We used impact fee money, there's some capital account money that's going into that. We'll know by next meeting, we'll have, I'm sure, a comprehensive report on that, so. Yeah.
All right, so the next one, town hall relocation update. We did go out to bid for 2 different services. One was the environmental site assessment, so the ESA. Those bids came in, with one bid being the apparent low bidder, and then the committee met to discuss whether or not it was a good bid, and then they did discuss it at length, I think, well, maybe not at length, but did discuss it with Matt, that the apparent low bidder was awarded the bid after quite a bit of discussion. And they're starting that soon, testing. Was it August 10th?
August 10th, should be done by August 30th.
They're hoping to be done by the end of August. It was clear, Stan asked the question, if we, I thought it was Stan, if we assess this and we find out that remediation is cost prohibitive, are we required to do it in a certain amount of time? And they said, no, it was not.
Only if you disturb it, right?
Right, so,
Yeah.
Seems to be a question many people ask, and we fear the worst, so we're gonna find out what it's like over there.
Yeah, and I mean, we need to know that no matter what we do with that property.
so if it's a brownfield, we can still dig on it? Or do we have to cap it?
It depends on what type of brownfield they find. They will,
Very
part of the
technical.
RFP here was for that company to give us an assessment on how much it would cost
These are the
them.
top results.
Somebody said Google or something close to Google.
Oh, that's funny. Here are some results for that. Thank you, Siri, for
Have
speaking
to shut her
out.
down.
Rude. So part of the assessment here is that they're going to provide an estimate on how much it would cost to remediate and what that type of remediation is. I don't know. Could be capping, could be a alternate. I don't think there's a whole lot of wiggle there, but I don't pretend to be an expert on environmental assessment.
But it seemed like from the minutes, at least, we don't have to act on that immediately.
That's correct.
Right, so we can, if we need to reassess and do something else, we could still apply for grants.
Right.
Maybe that's the site, maybe it's not the site, so.
At some point, if we find out we've got an oil brownfield on the edge of the water in the bay, it's gonna be something that we have a moral obligation to clean up, I would think. I mean, even if we don't have to, I would think it'd be something that the public would get behind cleaning, right on the edge of the water. And we need, so while we're on the subject, I got approached by a business owner in the bay, and I'm not going to say which one because it'll lead right back to which one of them it was. And the line of questioning was, why would you want to put a town hall on that property when you could put in a boat launch and mint money for everybody in St. Albans area forever, as long as it was there? He said, look at what you have on Hathaway Point, look at how the road's full of trucks and trailers all weekend, and then think of the traffic that brings, and then think of the money that's spent at the store or stores in the area, in the grocery stores from people who go and they spend $100 on food for a day or two just to go boating, and people who come for bass tournaments that, spend 2-3 hotel rooms worth of nights at the La Quinta and then the Hampton. So it might be worth trying to think about turning that garage property into something that'll be usable totally by the public in something like a boat launch. And it might make sense to push a lot harder than we have been with the landowner in the area that owns land nearby and site a new building there and do it all under one project. Get it all done with one set of funding requests, one set of design team. Just do it. Get it over with. Get it in the ground within 2 years. If we need dredging, let's get the cost. Let's start going after permits. I mean, if we could get a 2-ramp system in there and be able to unload 2 boats at once safely, we get that barge out of the ground. I talked to Chuck. He said he had a quote to remove that for $25,000, and that's always something that somebody pulls up. You can't get a boat launch here. There's a sunken barge. Well, it's $25,000. Come on. Maybe we need to, if we're really going to revitalize the bay, we need to figure out a way to bring in people who will spend money and enjoy it. And we can't get water and sewer for less than, $25 million? It's never going to happen for us. So something like a boat launch might be the only opportunity to make sure that there are people down here trying to spend money on a regular basis. We could do a nice pavilion. Public Works could build it, the same one as Cohen Park. We could put some electrical in it, and they could run bass tournaments or fishing tournaments. We could bring in so much revenue.
I think it's a great idea. I think we have to see what comes back from the report of what we can do with that soil. I mean, I don't know, digging a boat ramp might require cleanup too. I don't know what level.
You're right.
So that could add to the cost. I don't know if we'll be able to do it as one big project depending on the steps that come back.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, it's very critical then that we talk to Mrs. Brown and try to lock that property up for St. Albans Town. I don't know if we've had any contact with her.
and that's why I bring that up. If our vision is that this should be a boat launch or something totally for the public as an economic boost for the area, and I think it should be, we've got to nail down that we're going to go on that property or we're not. And if we are, we've got to get under contract with somebody here.
Is there enough room on the existing property that we own to have a building and a boat launch?
Alan's shaking his head. It'd be tight,
No.
and they require so much
I don't know how
parking,
big it is.
like 2 acres.
No, it wouldn't be.
The footprint of your town hall would take a lot of that space up, I would think, on
Yeah.
that land.
By the time you add green space and
Parking.
Exactly.
the thought might be actually to buy that land next door and build extra parking for the boat launch, honestly.
We could do that too.
I think that's probably what we're gonna end up being told we would need.
There's so
by
many
design team.
possibilities with that land and it's flat. That's the beauty of it, it's flat.
Right,
How many, what do we have for right of way? Anything there?
Right away as in where,
Up at the upper end of Wharf Street,
well, War Street, we have a 66-foot right of way.
66-foot right of way, so.
so we could do quite a bit with that.
Yeah.
I mean, I-
Who's,
so,
we need to talk with Mrs. Brown.
well, yeah, we need to get Matt, Carrie, and Mrs. Brown in one call and then figure out what we wanna do. How do we wanna set the price? I know in a lot of situations like this, you hire 3 appraisers and agree to pay the average. I don't know, we've gotta come up with how we wanna settle on that. We need to figure out,
Usually we figure those things out before we announce what we've done though.
right.
Right.
Like to not do that
We,
right now.
Well, I'm just saying, we gotta get to the point where we know.
I understand that.
we need a purchase and sales agreement, so, I mean, Mrs. Brown is a businesswoman in this town, and, she could sell that property quickly right now with the way the people are buying up property.
Oh, she's got 2 approved building lots near the bay. It's,
Yeah, you got it.
it is,
So,
if
we
they
need to
were,
move.
if they were listed, they would be gone. If they were listed right, they'd be gone in a week. So, I agree with Stan. So maybe this all can coincide. So that ESA is supposed to be due back at the end of August.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, we can get into purchase and sales, and then everything will start to line up so that we can start doing actual design work in maybe September, really get it figured out.
Well, we need to purchase the property regardless of what our site is, right? If it's contaminated or not, we still need to purchase that property.
Yeah, I'm just saying, as far as doing a design team, like, we might need to do a change order on the design team's contract if we're adding a boat launch in, if we decide that's what we want to do, and it might cost a little bit more money, and we might have to find some areas in the general fund to pull from in order to cover that. And those are just those are basic conversations that just need to happen in order to go where we want to go. But I think that's where we've got to go. I honestly do think that the voters would be more apt to approve a municipal project that included a boat ramp, even if it costs quite a bit to install, than they would to even put a town hall on Mrs. Brown's land or on town-owned land. If it includes a boat launch, I think we're going to be, and that is the only thing the town can do, other than keeping the town hall in the Bay Area, is to put something in that would drive money to the area. We could do a connectability project in the first summer that it was built and connect that to the Bay Park. There's so much that we can do.
Just one thing, Carrie mentioned in the past that the state might have been interested in putting a boat ramp there. I don't know what happened over at Apple Tree, over in South Euro, but the state, I don't know if they purchased the property or they leased the property from that resort, but the state like runs the ramp, and then you got the marina on the side, so maybe we could partner with the state, maybe they would pay for the ramp. I don't know how that works, but just
The state gave him a pretty good grant, because I talked to that guy right after
You
they
did?
awarded that bid, and then he told me that a lot of the grant funds had dried up. Alan and I met with him on our dock. I thought it was
I
Alan.
mean, that's a project that our Montpelier delegation could get
You can
behind
try it
helping
again.
us with. I mean,
Are we,
Combo.
I
are we
think,
gonna set something to get with Mrs. Brown so that
I would say we would want to try to get that meeting set by the end of the week. I would want to
by
say
when?
the end of the week. Try to get Carrie and Matt with Mrs. Brown by the end of the week to try to figure out where everybody's at, and then if there are things that need to be discussed at a board level, we'll have either, depending on how time sensitive it is, if it's really time sensitive for any particular reason, we can look at a special meeting. If not, we'll have an executive session before or after our next regular meeting on the 3rd to figure it out.
I'm definitely in favor of finding a way to advance recreation on the lake. You know, something in the previous planning commission's conversations, we had hoped that the DPW would have, and not speaking for the current planning commission, but last year we had talked about that site and thought that a boat ramp with kayak access would be a really good fit for our town. That was before it had been really looked at in the public as a spot for the town hall. You know, I think that the one concern I would have is if it is if our location is, if the DPW site is a brownfield that needs a lot of remediation, if we're buying another part of a plot of land, I think, you know, one of the things that we have going for us with our current DPW site is it's something that we already own. If we are looking at purchasing more and we're looking at expanding the project, I think I'd wanna know that there was grants available and additional funds to help support that, because, you know, in this time of economic downturns, you know, building something that's going to last and support the town for years to come, I think is really important. But also being mindful of what folks are facing cost-wise. And I think that creating a project that has a lot of amenities, while any other time I would definitely be all for that, I think we just need to be mindful of the overall cost and what that's going to mean, both from the building and design phase through the upkeep and management of it. So that's just a consideration. That's why I'm not like wildly raising my hands excited over here. I'm just thinking about that too.
Well, here, let me take out, we were thinking that it would cost somewhere in the ballpark of what, like 3.4 million to build a new, that was something that was a number that was floating around, not including land. So say if we needed to borrow say if we needed 5, we put down $1 million, we borrowed 4 on a, call it a 30-year note at a 3.75% rate, which is high. You'd be, the voters would have, that'd be $228,000 a year roughly, and that's high. So that would come from the local option tax, so it wouldn't increase property taxes. That's my line of thinking, is to use that to develop all this. And then the thought is, if we take local option tax money and use it towards a boat launch, even if it costs $1 million to remediate the brownfields, we'll get a dividend return on that, because people will be coming in, they'll be spending money, then we'll collect 1% off of them in perpetuity.
We should get some state aid.
We should, definitely. If anything, they should come in and build it for us and do all the dredging, and we can either manage it when it's done.
big, but
Yeah, I mean,
they don't have any money, so.
What's nice, when this environmental team, when they do their drilling, they can tell us the penetration. So we'll know which way that is flowing, if there is any
well, if it's
contaminants.
yeah, and if it's flowing into the water and we need to clean it up in a short sense, they've got $60 million a year in clean water funds.
Yeah.
So, and we've got a really good delegation that could argue for us.
Okay.
So we get that back at the end of August, we're gonna know a lot more.
In the meantime, we're
Gonna work with Jackie and.
thank you.
But so do we all kind of have a consensus that that's a good vision to try to work towards? Find the particulars, but work towards it. What are your thoughts? I think you're the only one here that owns Jessica owns a boat, but I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea.
Okay.
I'm a yes.
Okay. So, Aaron.
Yeah,
So we've-
I like the idea. I mean, one meeting last week, Alan threw out the idea of converting one of the old public works building and creating it into a rental space, because that's a high need in this area. So that could be something I could bring in income too.
Yeah. There's all kinds of things.
Could be room for both sides.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
Maybe people would want the rental space to host their fishing tournaments out of. Yeah. Okay. So do we have anything else we want to talk about with the town hall?
Just briefly, the design service team was also hired, and French Freeman, FFF, was selected. We did have a kickoff meeting last week. Steering committee, met, reviewed all of the, proposals, and there was a little bit of discussion on that, but there was consensus to hire this team. Really great value for what the money, and we're gonna be meeting weekly and fairly aggressively to try to reach that November deadline, knowing that, there's a fallback position, but we're gonna be trying to do that as well and as quickly as we can. So if anyone wants to participate or attend, let us know. We'll just have to warn a meeting, but right now, Jonathan, Stan, Anna, and I, and Jen attend those meetings.
Okay.
That's kind of it right now. Right now, we're gonna, practically speaking, we're all looking at space needs analysis right now, like how much space do you currently use, what do you project needing, and, they're gonna work with us on developing that a little.
Okay.
Yeah. COVID update is getting slimmer and slimmer, not that we're ignoring the fact that we're in the middle of a pandemic, but I really think at this point, we're kind of holding our own with the town hall being open and operational, but open by appointment only. Seems to be working. Anna's, taking, appointments, and so when that person comes in, they tell us when people are in the building coming upstairs. We sanitize after everyone leaves, everything they touch, and we're using a lot of caution at this point, so. And that we do update our website as things change. And even the governor's press conferences, which used to be lengthy and 3 times a week, are down to 2 times a week. They're not quite as long, as we slowly continue to open things up. So that the ACCD website has guidance for businesses and other things, and the state health website is really great at this point. The state doesn't always do these things really well, but right now they are doing these well. Healthvermont.gov, I think it is, and that dashboard thing is, screen is really full of information that's updated every day, so, good information.
We need to speak up a little bit.
Okay,
Yes,
sorry. You're getting what?
I just got a message. We need to talk louder.
Okay. I don't know what the deal is with that. It's a challenge, but we shut all the air conditioners off too, which is my least favorite thing. But we'll try. So if there's any questions on that, if anyone is interested, you can call me if we're not finding enough information, but that's my COVID update. Street name change request is something that periodically comes up. You have in front of you our street naming ordinance and also a request from a resident who bought a fairly large piece of land, and would like us to consider, like the select board to consider approving a name change. I'm not actually proposing that now, I'm just trying to gather if there's consensus to do so. I read the ordinance again, and I mean, honestly, I think we're only supposed to be changing names if it's a safety issue, so I'm a little concerned that, if you read on the first page, section 2, number 3, the select boards may only change the name of streets, both public and private, within the town when necessary to promote public welfare and safety. I feel like it's pretty clear. But it's not my decision, so bringing it to you for consideration.
Okay, does anybody want to start that discussion? I think we kind of have to set a precedent here as a board.
Sorry, what section were you reading, Perry? I just got to that.
Section 2, the front page of the street addressing ordinance,
Okay.
number 3,
Okay.
halfway through.
So by approving it, we'd be in violation of our own ordinance. But if we don't like the conditions that we would be in violation of, we can change them because we're the local legislative body and that's possible.
That's true.
So I guess we have to decide if we don't, well, and I guess my only question is how big of a pain is it for E911 coordinators and local emergency services to deal with changing road names? I mean, this scenario of there's two people that live on the road, the one with the largest land wants to change the last name of the name of the road from somebody else's last name to their last name. I can kind of see a case there, and there's a case that, well, the town could be open about it and be the friendly town, or we could say our ordinance is our ordinance and that's not a safety issue.
I'll tell you, it takes a while, and we hesitated when we changed the address, which was required for safety reasons on Brigham, and we're, other roads. People did not love it. Now, there's only 2 residents on here, so maybe it's not a huge deal, but it takes a while, even if we try to reach out for the different databases like Google Maps and other things to get the updated information.
And I would argue that it doesn't make us to say that we need to stick with the ordinance doesn't make us an unfriendly town. I think it just means that, for the next person that asks, that might have 5 people living on the road, or the person that asks, maybe they sell this property and someone else moves on there and they want it changed again. I think if, we have this ordinance, I think in general, if we're not in consensus and we want to change the ordinance, then we could talk about that. But I mean, I feel the public welfare and safety element of this ordinance seem like a fair line to draw, so that way we're not arbitrating based off of circumstances each time, which might be less fair in the long run.
Okay. Jonathan, let's go in a circle here. What do you think?
Well, unless you want to change the ordinance, then.
Is your position approve or no?
I would say no.
Okay, I'm in the same boat. So that's 3 anyway, but Jessica, how do you feel?
Yeah, I would say no. I'd rather stick to the ordinance unless there was a real compelling reason to change it. And there is another road with the name they want to change it to in Highgate. I mean, I don't know if that's confusing to people. I know that happens a lot around here, but 2 different towns with the same road name.
I don't believe we should be changing the road. We have to do a public meeting to get the road name changed.
Who knows what else is out there?
It'll be something else, yes.
Yep. And like Aaron said, what happens if somebody sells this parcel in 10 years? Are we going to be doing? And then again, it's a bureaucratic nightmare, but it's a nightmare, and no, So I think we have our answer on that. You don't need a motion to be able to deny.
I do not, I
Okay.
do not, I'll follow up. All right, the next item is a planning update. Ned's going to provide a executive summary, he's gonna have to unmute himself, on a quarterly stormwater update, and then finish with a overview of the utilities that the, planning commission has been working on. All right, Ned, you need to unmute yourself.
Are you might have him muted.
I didn't mute anyone.
Could be a setting.
It's what?
Unmute.
Right.
Yeah.
I know that I got it.
He might
but-
be muted on his device though.
Now he is.
Okay. Can you hear us?
Can you say something, Ned? No, we can't hear him.
So bizarre. This worked out when we tested it. Al, can you say something?
I can't hear anybody.
I can hear Al.
I can't hear Ned at all. I just see his mouth move.
We can't hear him either.
Yeah, we can't hear him either, Al.
We can't hear Ned either, Al, but we can hear you, which is why I was just doing that test. Because the speaker was working. I don't think it's
we're
us.
good.
If
We're
Al,
good.
if we can hear Al,
Yeah, we're good.
we're good, so I wouldn't
wouldn't.
mess with it.
No.
on
Yeah.
our end.
No, it's
Alright.
not on our end. Input. Yeah.
Okay, well,
See if I can give us a report.
we can't hear you, Ned, so you might wanna just call my cell phone, maybe you can speak on this.
Or maybe it's his headphones.
Pull
that
your
he's on.
headphones
Takes
out.
the headphones out.
Take them out.
Take your headphones out.
Ooh.
Of the computer.
Yeah.
Out of the computer. Oh, now he can't hear us.
Jesus.
Oh my god. COVID.
Take the wheel, take it from my hands. I can't do this on. I'm letting go.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine.
Okay, we can hear you now, but did you take your, the jack out of your computer, the headphone jack?
I am using my laptop and now it's just, can you hear me now at all?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Well,
It's
not
just
through the
phone.
no.
not through the computer, no.
Yeah, okay,
Oh, he's not on the phone.
sorry. The computers are doing crappy things here today, I'm sorry.
Al, can you hear Ned?
No,
Look, we gotta get that closer.
it's okay. Just go on. I'll read the minutes.
All right, so if you can go, you can start, Ned, with
You
the
gotta love that guy.
stormwater
Put your
update.
phone next to the microphone.
Okay,
That one?
I
Yeah.
apologize for the technical issues. It's been a long time since I've been in for a stormwater update. I apologize for that also. So we've had a busy year for stormwater. Let me just mute myself here.
Don't do that.
I'm getting an echo. Hang on a second.
Alright, we gotta mute him. Mute him on the
Okay,
Zoom.
that's better. I'll turn the volume down. We've had,
Case that
completed
starts.
3 stormwater projects over the last year. There are 2 up near NMC and the industrial park. Stormwater, we're making good, slow but steady progress. The other day, in terms of stormwater in general, we finally got the permits to do the Tanglewood stuff after waiting a year. In addition, for Tanglewood, we put in a grant for them just the other day to complete the construction of that project. We put in for about $150,000. Everyone keep your fingers crossed, or if you know anybody on the committee, please tell them it's really critical. Additionally, we've also, with the planning commission and Aaron's tremendous help, we've been working on the stormwater utility, which you have some of the information in front of you right now. You want me to jump right to there, Brendan?
Yes, please.
the single sheet of paper. The purpose of the stormwater utility is pretty obvious. It's to establish a method to control stormwater flows and volumes. Right now, for the town of St. Albans, flow and speed are the two critical things. We also have to come up with some stuff to mitigate phosphorus, but in comparison to other towns in Vermont, we don't really have a chemistry problem. We have a flow, volume, and speed problem. The vision for the stormwater utility is to reduce the introduction of just general pollutants, and we've been working on that for basically forever. The third thing is to meet our obligations for the MS4, for our MS4 permits, is to do all of those rehabs throughout town. Okay? The two next ones are sort of critical. The projects that are disturbing more than 1 acre of land require a state permit. Our stormwater utility would only affect those below the state's level. Okay, so we're the acre or less. Now, we wouldn't be affecting, the original stormwater utility we had very small areas. I could imagine my grandmother, when she put in her tomatoes, having to go in for a stormwater permit for erosion control. We are not that small. We're well above what any normal person would do for a garden. Okay? A couple of quick definitions for the stormwater utility. Equivalent residential unit. You're going to hear ERU throughout the years for stormwater utility. ERU means a single-family home where, based on the analysis from the consultant and our work at the planning commission, we've come up with a 3,500 square foot average for single-family homes. So that's the house itself, the driveway, a shed, some other stuff, ends up on average around town being approximately 3,500 square feet. The other definition is pretty straightforward: a single-family residence. Now that's a single-family, because it's detached single-family home, but it includes duplexes and triplexes. So if you have more than 4 units either on your property or in your building, you immediately become a non-single-family residence. There's only two different types of building units. There's single families and non-single families. And non-single family units include everything else. So there's no exclusions from the stormwater utility. No nonprofits not paying taxes, not paying the fees, not getting sort of a free ride. Every parcel and every property in town will pay these fees. Are there any questions?
No. Anything for Ned so far? Okay, continue, please.
Nope, go ahead.
Along with that, based on the budget that the consultants come up with, they recommend that $65 per ERU charge for single family $65 charge per ERU per annual fee per year. The single family resident would be charged one $65 fee. The non-single family residents, you would measure their property to find out how much impervious surface they have, divide by 3,500. As it says, we come up with a fee based on that charge.
So who does the measuring?
Thank you. Pardon?
Who does the measuring? Do we go off of what we have?
Actually, it can all be done via GIS. If somebody wanted to survey it out, we could, they could survey it out on their own dime, but we can use the existing GIS files that we have in-house within the region.
Okay. Okay, so does anybody have any questions for Ned? Do you want to explain the single-family residence charges, 1 ERU except for more than 1 acre of impervious?
Could you say your question one more time?
So you have on this one sheet, this fact sheet, single-family residence properties or parcels shall be billed 1 ERU per year. So that's $65. Except for single-family properties having more than 1 acre of impervious surface, and they shall be billed 10 ERU. So it goes from $65 to $650 an acre of impervious is a lot, but do we know if there are any? Are there even any single-family properties in town that are over an acre?
I don't think there are many. If there are, they would generally be farm properties that have, large barns, large holding yards, some sort of large paved or gravel or prepared surface. Because one of the key things to remember in terms of stormwater is if the ground has been, I'm doing air quotes, manufactured, so like a gravel road, that's an impervious surface. A gravel work yard, that's an impervious surface.
But that's still not a single family. I'm talking like a single family residence. If they are over 1 acre of impervious surface, they get billed $650 instead of $65.
Right, and there will be very few, but please understand, these are not, you're thinking of them in terms of like land use. These are the terms to make the word that are used in stormwater utility. So that, there's very few properties that will have, or single-family residence properties that have that amount of impervious surface. A handful at most, in my opinion, in town.
I'm just trying to do the math because that is a little bit. So you do 43,560. 43,560 divided by 3,500 times 65. So that's, if we were charging the going rate, it'd be $810 if you took 1 acre and divided it by 3,500 and then multiplied that by 65. So it's a little bit of a break, but I'm not sure that we wouldn't want to put in even more of a break. We might want to cap this somewhere. Like if it's a true single family residence and not a duplex or a triplex, it honestly should get capped at like 100.
I would say I would be very surprised when there was a true single family residence in town that has an acre of impervious surface.
Oh, I'm right there with you. I'd be shocked. I just don't know that that's not the case.
Well, I mean, you're gonna see these again at the next meeting. You can look at.
Yeah, if we could just figure out if there are any, if there are 10 of them out there, then it's worth talking about maybe doing a cap.
Well, and if there's 10 and they're mostly agriculture, I mean, I'd hate to have the farmers being billed a lot more.
Right, yeah. No, we don't want to do any type of discrimination based on any type of property type.
But I think, Ned, there's very few, I don't think farms as such, agriculture fits as single-family resident, right?
Well, that's what I'm saying, yeah.
Yeah.
So we're talking about, maybe a duplex with a very, very large parking lot or garage that, that's on site too, potentially, or just a very large home.
That's it.
But yeah, it would be a break from what they would have been charged if they were by the actual.
About $160 worth of a break.
Mm-hmm.
But if we could cap it at, if it's in that case, maybe like $100 per household. So if it's a triplex, it's capped at $300. I just don't know that adding $650 in the middle of a pandemic.
Please understand that we need to start giving somebody a break. Everybody's going to want a similar break, and that's why it does. A single-family home, a duplex or a triplex all get the $65 rate because they're all generally going to be in the same unit. So the coverage and the impervious surface will generally be, give or take, several hundred square feet. Very similar to our 3,500 square foot acreage, whereas the small amount of homes that have an acre of impervious surface, something special is going on. And
43,000 square feet. There probably isn't.
Charge them differently. That's fine. I mean, we can rewrite that. But where do we draw the line in measuring everybody's square footage and filling it out that way?
Well, it's residential versus non-residential is all I'm after. I just want to make sure that we're not tagging anybody residentially. You might be able to look it up and say that there's no property that fits the SFR definition that's over an acre of impervious, in which case that's fine. We can leave that provision in there in case somebody does decide to build a 40,000 square foot house with a long driveway in the town.
40,000 square feet.
If anybody's looking to build that town,
That is a metal mansion.
come
Yeah.
come on down.
Where
Yeah.
do businesses fit in with large parking lots like the industrial park and maybe some of the car dealerships? How are they charged?
We would, the total impervious area would be measured using a GIS file, and we would divide that number of square footage by 3,500
Okay.
to the nearest corner, and then we would send them a bill, 65 times 10 or 15 or 12 or whatever it was.
That's fair enough.
But what about a cemetery?
There should be
The
some.
cemetery would get charged for the roads.
They would get charged for the road.
Yeah, because that's impervious surface.
Yes, it
there's
is.
no exclusion in this ordinance.
That's almost the way it needs to be. It's going to be really hard to enact it, but it's a. Who can fault us though? Honestly, we're always scared to make decisions like this because we're scared of who's going to come in looking for a break next. But who can fault us if we give an exemption to just cemeteries? They don't raise any money, really, to speak. Well, not really. When you look at the cost to maintain them, I don't know. I guess that's a discussion, but
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, thinking about just how any impervious surface has an impact on our commitments to meeting our water quality goals. I think that's why everyone's included in this. And also to help raise the funds to meet our obligations. That's, the 65 ERUs was calculated based off of the assumption of the amount of ERUs that we might be getting in, and that was based on the work that needs to happen to meet our commitments. So if we give exceptions to either large parcels or certain types of businesses, the ERU might need to go up. And so more people might be taking on that burden. It's not that we can just keep it at 65. It means that other people might have to pay more, potentially, depending on, I'm not saying that a cemetery is going to make or break us in the cost of things, but thinking about those exceptions, that's, the calculation was based in large part on what we know we might have and what we know we need to pay for over the coming years. And the consultant and Ned have, in looking at the first couple years, especially the first year of implementation, it's going to cost more because there's going to be people who want to get their parcel measured out more than maybe by GIS. We're going to have to help folks understand it and work through any issues and problems and questions they have. It's going to take a lot of time that first year to kind of set things up. There's not going to be a lot of dramatic changes year to year from most property owners. So then it'll just be on project by project basis after that, which we've got the rest of the stormwater ordinance here, or utility guidance here to go
so
through.
we've got I hear and appreciate what you said. My only question is, looking at this, did we think about trying to share some of the overhead that this is going to create, the administrative overhead that's going to eat a lot of these ERUs up, by doing a joint utility with another municipality who's also an MS4 community that needs to get up? I mean, there's one in the city, and I'm not saying let's do one with the city because it's the city, but isn't Georgia an MS4?
No,
No. Who else is?
city.
Swan?
I don't think they are.
What village is
No.
it?
It was only this.
Well, if it's
What'd
just
you
a
say,
city,
Ned?
I mean,
Everyone's has part of the TMDL now though, so they're part of stormwater things. It's
I mean, this
not
is
like-
just the.
So we can do it, we can think about it moving forward, but the reason this was on such a tight timeline is we have no money to support our next year's stormwater expense.
Well, there's a lot of government programs that don't have money right now. I mean, it's gonna be.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd rather wait a year and get it right and make sure that we're not supporting an inflated overhead for any type of a reason. You know what I'm saying? I mean, they've got one up there. It's the primary function. Alan, I mean, it would be. How much time would a stormwater utility time tie your crew up in maintaining ponds, or would that be a whole set of the utility that would be paid for by the utility? What's the long-term vision for this?
It's gonna take on a lot of work. There's a lot of upgrades in the town to do, not just ponds. Stormwater ties into everything. You know, it ties in from your catch basins to your ditches, everything that heads towards the lake. So each year we try doing so much more ditches and lining them, we clean ponds. You know, he's talking about Tanglewood, is that, when that's done, is that something we're trying to keep upkeep? You know, there's talks of the pond around the hospital that needs upkeeping now. It's a lot of added work.
So we either need to set a precedent that we're gonna bill for this, either through the utility to either make Alan's crew bigger or recoup our labor costs, especially if it's going into private assets like the hospital. And if we don't own Tanglewood Drive and we haven't taken that stormwater system over, then we shouldn't be liable to maintain it. We're already investing taxpayer money into, 25% or 1/8 of the cost of rebuilding it? Because it was never built or maintained correctly to begin with, and it wasn't. So we're talking about taking money from everyone to solve localized problems, to fix the lake, which is owned by everyone. So it makes sense in the end, but we got to make sure the process is equitable. And if you're talking it's going to tie your crew up for a month of summer at least to do X, Y, and Z, then we either need to add 3 guys on your crew and get the money through this, or somebody's got to pay something. I mean, this can't be. We all start paying a new bill, and then you're worked to death, and you can't get anything else done other than stormwater.
So I don't know.
Can I jump in?
Yeah, please.
No, you go ahead.
The budget, and the budget that the 65 per year is based on includes a growth into that number of people, of 3-person FTE maintenance division. It also includes an administrator to, take care of, the administrative role in this thing. So we grow into that, that number of people over a 5-year time period.
Okay, if that's programmed in here, then that answers that question.
Right.
And I think, Ned, it might be when the stormwater utility comes back, I don't know if Stantec is going to be a part of that conversation, or if we can have the slide deck that they shared and maybe you could walk through it. But I think, at least for the planning commission, hearing from Stantec, their process of calculating the ERU, I think would be really helpful for the select board to hear, as part of our conversation about the utility. I think it's important. So.
That's a good point. Thank you.
Yep.
Maybe we can have a brief sit down with them I don't know how brief it can be to give a thorough presentation on how you form a utility, and if it's not brief, it's not brief, but it's a bigger platform to share it.
Brendan, don't we need this before we implement? Don't we need to know what Alan needs? What maybe whoever's doing the building, the paperwork, we need to know how many people they need and stuff.
Well, he said that this fee would support 3 people and then an administrator.
Yeah,
And
and I
they're
believe
basing it-
part of Stantec's calculations, they looked at the work that would need to happen to meet our obligations, and then they do this work for other municipalities, and
Yeah.
based off of that, they were able to calculate, just based off the work and not necessarily what we already have or don't have, this is the amount of FTEs you would need, this is the kind of administrative support you would need. So that's all part of the calculation that went into it, so it's not like this is completely theoretical.
So is the vision that administrator, the stormwater utility administrator, to create a title just to have one, is the vision that person would be off on their own island and report to the manager, or is this going to be something under the public works director, operated out of the same building?
Well, I think we were initially thinking the latter, that it would be a Department of Public Works
Mhm.
function and report to that person, but we can see how it works as it goes. I mean, we're gonna have to work a little bit with zoning and other departments, but we have a zoning administrator that works with all other departments too, so.
We've got a really good hands-on DPW director, and to get this process started, I think it would be easier as an organization to hire an administrator to handle the billings and the particulars, and then maybe have Alan work with the new FTEs to build schedules. And I think the more control we give to Alan in that scenario of a startup, especially on the PW side of it, the better off we'll be, short and long term. But that's just a. Ned, do you have something?
Suggestion. I was planning on coming into the August 17th meeting with Stantec to go over, as part of a public hearing on the ordinance. Well, I just continue to bring Stantec in at the August 17th meeting, not for a public hearing, but to go over this in, great detail so that the select board knows all the little nuts and bolts of the utility.
That's fair. I think that would be a good move, Ned.
Right.
Okay.
Stan?
How do we take care of the sellers that they're grandfathered in, that have stockpiles of topsoil, sand, stone in their yard, where you need a permit to transport 100 cubic yards of soil, or if you're gonna remove it from your property? Who is gonna manage that? Who is gonna be the enforcement officer on that? Does that come in under the DPW?
I thought it came under that stormwater manager, but.
Yeah, it'd be the stormwater administrator.
So does the grandfather clause go away for those people?
Don't know the answer for that.
I mean, I don't think the stormwater ordinance as it's written here in the draft covers those grandfathered instances, but what it does talk about, the ordinance is for new development. So if that moving of soil is considered part of a new development or new construction that's going on, earth being moved, I don't know if that would then make it fall into this ordinance, but since that was existing topsoil above the ground, I don't know if that's part of the acreage of the land at that point. But, and, yeah.
Until the soil is disturbed, if it's sitting there on the ground now and obviously not eroding and causing damage to the stormwater system, the stormwater utility won't care about it. It's until you start disturbing more than, depending on where you're located in town, approximately 10,000 square feet of area. 10,000 square feet is a very big pile of dirt to move. So, those won't be, there won't be any type of enforcement on that sort of a property until we actually started moving or planned on moving that big pile of dirt.
So I'll use myself for an example. If I want to move 10 yards from this part of my lot to this part of my lot, what do I need to do?
I don't think it would be.
I don't think that meets the.
Well, you're talking impervious surfaces.
But
I don't know how much square footage that is, but
30, 10 yards is 30 feet.
yeah, if you were gonna, you should be you should be getting a permit through the utility and providing the correct amount of stormwater mitigation, but erosion control and stormwater mitigation.
And that's if you're creating impervious surfaces by moving that, right? I mean, if you just.
you're gonna
You're disturbing
You're just
soil.
disturbing the soil.
disturbing it, you can't disturb soil.
Well, if
Yeah.
you're just disturbing
Well,
soil.
you're gonna tell me you can't move 10 yards of dirt? That's not even
No,
a full triaxle load of dirt.
No, that's not.
Yeah, I think Ned, you were saying it's the minimum cutoff for the ordinance is 10,000 square feet?
Correct.
Correct.
So it's an area, it's not based
It's a
on
larger
volume.
area,
I mean,
yeah.
if you went down
Yeah.
20 feet by
Yeah,
5,000 square foot, I mean, whatever that.
right, so
It's based on.
I got state laws that kick in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean.
You have
it-
to have self-fence.
is that very clear? I read it, but it was so much reading,
Yeah, there's a lot in here. I couldn't pick out the page, but I know we can go back and make sure specifically that is laid out exactly. But yeah, but that was there is like a ceiling
Yeah.
and a floor for what this ordinance covers as far as disturbing soil. So
And the intent was to not address the smaller
Right.
changes. I mean, we're not trying to do that.
Al, I see you here. I know you're on the planning commission. I know you've been muted. Do you have anything you'd like to add? Should we unmute you? Why don't we do that? Yeah. unmute him, please.
Did I do it?
No.
No.
Okay, can you?
I'm
There you
trying to
go.
mute himself, yeah.
Not having heard the full conversation, no, I'm reluctant to step in. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Okay, so Stantec's coming in, our second meeting in August.
Yep.
We're gonna grill them as much as we want, for as long as we want, and they're not allowed to charge an extra nickel.
I will also look around, Brendan, using the GIS to see
If you
if
could.
there are any 1 acre single family residences that hit that criteria, and sort of what is going on that property, if they are. If it's, they've got 5 tennis courts or something like that, then, we understand, but, or if it's a family farm, we should understand that also.
Right. Okay, that sounds fair. Does anybody have anything else for Ned? Okay.
And I want to say a big thank you to Erin, who really helped out tremendously in the stormwater utility. Thank you.
Sure.
All right, thank
Okay,
you.
thank you, Ned.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Alright, so, anything else under town manager report? Anybody have any questions for Carrie about anything random?
That's fun.
It's a good, always have to have an opportunity for random. So, agenda item 7, schedule. We've got Monday, August 3rd, and we are expecting to have an executive session to talk about a potential land acquisition for a town hall project, pending a discussion with our town manager and project manager and a property owner this week. And then we have Monday, August 17th, with Stantec now. Town Forest grand opening August 1st. Jessica?
Yeah, there's still a few spaces open. The bird walk is full, and some of the other ones are filling up quickly. So if anyone wants to attend, just email me and I'll sign you up. There's beginner mountain bike, intermediate mountain bike, a nature walk with Mike Kane, and there's something else. Oh, plant ID with Nancy Patch, the county forester.
Wow. It's going to be a great day.
Yeah.
Okay. Then we have the employee picnic select board, and it's likely to be held at the new garage.
Yes.
Everything that Alan and John cook together is better than anything you've ever eaten before in your life. I don't care how good of a cook your grandmother was or is. They are the best, and if you don't go, I feel sorry for you. I'm serious. That was
I
unbelievable.
know, it was really good.
In the Bay last year, and then again for Christmas.
Yeah, that's good.
We're switching it up. It's gonna be a good,
Yep.
good meeting.
No, we appreciate it too. You guys do awesome. It's, anybody have anything else to add to schedule? Okay, so I just want to talk. A couple weeks, what was it? Almost a month ago, maybe even 6 weeks by now. I brought in an impartial policing draft policy just to try to kickstart a conversation, and we agreed that after we got a contract either somewhat figured out or in place, we would try to revamp the police advisory committee. It is a committee, not a board.
Thank you.
The nomenclature's always been board, but it's not. So I always find it helpful when we get a baseline on paper to go from or edit. So I tried to put something together myself on 2 pages, and that's in the packets.
It is?
Mm-hmm. Towards the end, it's the end of the packet.
Yep.
And I just wrote a simple purpose statement, some expectations, tried to define membership, and this is all up for change. It's just trying to get something on paper that we can throw it all out and start over as a group, or we can work together and make it better. Then I tried to lay out some type of an actionable plan to get this group off the ground by September and get them rolling with our current policing services provider to understand where we are now, where we concentrate a lot of our call volumes, and then to begin to formalize a relationship with the sheriff's office before they take over on July 1st, and begin to figure out before the sheriffs take over where the town thinks its resources should be allocated. The only example I'll give before we discuss all of it is throughout the police contract negotiations, it was thrown in our face a lot by both bidders, that while you've got the growth center over at exit 20, when you've got Price Chopper and you've got Walmart, and there's a ton of retail theft, and there's a lot of calls that come out of that. So if the police advisory board says that maybe Walmart needs to be approached because it takes up X amount of our policing services or call volume, if it's 5% of what we, if it is, not that it is, but if it's 5% of our total call volume every year, maybe they should be approached with some type of a, I don't know, not a bill for 5% of the total cost, but there's got to be some type of a solution there to bring that call volume down so our new officer deputies can focus on other areas of the town. But anyway, so do we want to go right in a circle just to get our initial comments and then go from there? I'm going to start with Aaron.
Sure, so I'm definitely in favor of having a community police advisory committee, or what do we say, board committee?
Committee.
And, you know, in this draft, I think, you know, the couple pieces that, you know, we'll probably have to talk about in, you know, in our executive session, just knowing what kind of data we're gonna be asking them for. So that, you know, when we're talking about the data we're asking, thinking about, is this data that's actionable and usable to a community? Is this enough data for us to assess the work that's happening? And I think that once this committee is assembled, I think that they should also have a stake in reviewing this plan and making changes, because again, you know, we're sitting from this perspective and this vantage point, but I think that members of the community are gonna have a different perspective, and that's what we're looking for anyways with a committee of this kind.
As long as everything remains a recommendation to the select board.
Mm-hmm.
As long as we don't, like, so Jonathan and I were both on, I don't know if anybody else was on the city council meeting last Monday, and there was a number of people who read from prepared statements asking for an oversight committee either of the police department at large or of the process that they're going through with their contractor MRI to reform hiring practices. I don't know what that is. And they all asked for a citizen oversight committee, and they all said vaguely, with voting power. And nobody ever stopped any of them and said, what do you mean by that? What do you want power to vote on? As long as we have a clear vantage point that we're forming a committee that will work with our police services provider to make recommendations for the board to action, that's like just setting that clear expectation.
I mean, the only piece that I would add is that there are communities that are looking at having more direct oversight in some way, shape, or form with the community of the policing, of the police force that's there. I'm not suggesting that that's what we should do at this point in time, but I think that as we're working with the policing services that we're contracting with and the community, I think we're gonna figure out what is the best fit over time for us. But I think this is a good place to start,
Right.
to get buy-in and conversation leading up to the contract change in July of next year.
Fair. Jonathan, you're on the police advisory committee. What do you think of this idea?
Yeah, I like it. I like having the mix of people that you've laid out in here. Yeah, I think it's a step in the right direction, having a...
Let's read that list out loud for anybody who might be listening. The idea is one non-chair or vice chair select board member, so one non-officer of the select board, 2 town residents at large, a town resident with an active law enforcement certification, and there's a caveat that that resident couldn't be somehow affiliated with whatever law enforcement agency we're contracted with. Then there's either 2 chief executive officers or board members. We'd have to add that they'd have to be appointed by their board and they'd have to be authorized by their board, but of 2 local nonprofits, and those people may be non-residents. And again, it's all up to the select board, so it's a case-by-case appointment. But it just leaves that opportunity open. If somebody's got a great deal of experience in the community but doesn't live here and has a good vantage point, I don't think we should handcuff ourselves. And then again, 2 business owners in the area. And I would say that, again, the same non-residents are allowed, but the businesses have to be located with within the town. And then just in general, like I couldn't be one of the, if I ever got off the board, I couldn't ask to be appointed as a business owner if I own a business in Highgate. The business itself has to be located within the town to qualify. And then a lot of times in these discussions, we don't ask our fire department what their perspective is, and I don't think that that's something that we ever intend to either ignore or not ask for, but this, adding one representative of the volunteer fire department, you know, they work with these folks on a regular basis, almost every call they're on. They know they know a lot. And then including them in these conversations, I think will be a good option. But
Brendan, I just had a question. So this would be an open meeting, I think. This would apply to the open meeting law,
yeah,
right?
definitely.
So this is something that the public could still, even though we only have 2 residents at large.
Absolutely.
The general public could participate in public comment and participate by attending.
100%.
Yep.
Absolutely. Just trying to bring key stakeholders to the table.
Mhm.
And that was what I think Jonathan and I heard a lot about, was making sure that the right stakeholders are in the room. You can have as many of everybody in the room, but to make sure you don't leave everyone out, at least one person or 2 people should be from a group of stakeholders. Jessica, what do you think?
I like it. I guess my concern is finding 9 people. That seems like a big number to me. I wonder if we could keep it at 5 and still have an effective group. It just seems like it's hard to get people to join committees, so.
Definitely.
So maybe not mandate 9, but if 9 are available, we could,
It could be one of those
Right.
understandings that we'll appoint a quorum, and we'll try to have at least, if there's 2 people, we'll try to at least have 1 and then leave it open, and then if it doesn't fill, we can make an adjustment.
Yeah.
Just change the policy.
And then the other thing that I wasn't sure about, everybody's appointments are just 1 year long.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's really helpful to have some overlap in different term lengths so people can carry forward what happened with the old board without having
Right.
to start anew again.
Mm-hmm.
So we'd have to either appoint some people in September or August or September to 1-year terms and then start with it. Like, you'd have to stagger them off, but
Or some could be 1 year and some could be 2 year.
Right.
And then at least the 2 year people are carrying through.
and then maybe if you have I don't know if the math will work out, but if you have 2 town residents and 2 nonprofit area nonprofit members and 2 business owners, maybe 1 of each is split,
Mm-hmm.
and then that takes care of that. Maybe you do 5 2-year terms and 4, or whatever the split ends up being. But yeah, that's a good point. I struggled with that a little bit, writing it, how to go, but I wanted to get it on paper.
Yeah.
Stan?
I know it works. Right, Carrie?
It can work well.
It works well
Yep.
if you sit down and listen, then take action. But if you take no action, nothing will get done and the committee will disperse. You gotta believe in them, you gotta work with them, and you gotta be with them to follow up wherever they think there is a problem.
So
we gotta have the select board member really gotta be into this to make it work.
So let me read the expectations part of this document. I think it's important. I have board in here, it should have been committee. That's a typo on my part. But the Police Advisory Committee will be renamed the Public Safety Advisory Committee, and will be tasked with ensuring that any contract for policing services approved by the Select Board is enforced in full. It is expected that the board will meet monthly to review data contractually required to be provided to the town by its chosen policing services administrator / law enforcement agency. The board will work with our contracted law enforcement agency to implement unbiased, common sense oriented, and community minded policing services. To that end, the board will work to engage area residents, local nonprofits, business owners, and other property owners within the town, landlord, and as an example, we have landlords, second homeowners. And it is expected that the board will ask area partners for feedback on policing services within the town no less than quarterly. So the idea is that on a quarterly basis, we'd put something out as an organization that would go directly to the Public Safety Advisory Committee. How are we doing? We'd solicit feedback, either through social media or otherwise. The board will analyze the contractually provided data, feedback from our aforementioned area partners/stakeholders, and will provide recommendations directly to the select board and our chosen law enforcement partner. The select board will not act on any The select board will act on any recommendations received within 30 calendar days. So that's a way to empower this group. If you're going to meet monthly, you're going to do your part, and you make a recommendation, within 30 days we're going to have to act on it, or at least discuss it and make a decision to continue on the discussion. If it's a large, we have to discuss it. The Select Board and Public Safety Advisory Committee will hold joint meetings no less than annually to review task statuses and other information. The Select Board member appointed to the Public Safety Advisory Committee will be tasked with updating each body on the work of its counterpart no less than monthly. So if the Public Safety Advisory Committee gives the Select Board a recommendation, that Select Board member who is on both reports to the committee on how the board's doing, and then vice versa. So there's a constant line of communication at a board level, not just the staff level. That's the thought. And then I laid out 6 steps to get started. I'm going to name them off. All police advisory, step 1, and it can be done as soon as our next meeting. All police advisory board committee appointments to be immediately vacated by action of the select board. Wipe it out, start over with something fresh. The town is to immediately begin a recruitment effort for new public safety advisory committee members. Social media contacts, put feelers out through both departments on anybody who may have retired or somebody who knows somebody. Email our nonprofits. When a quorum of the board has been appointed by the select board, the board will set its first meeting. It should not, I put will not, but it should not organize, elect a chair and vice chair until all board appointments have been made. Each appointment will be set for a term, and we got to figure that out. That's the part Jessica's right. We need to figure out how long the terms are and who gets what term. The board will meet with the St. Albans Police Department to review data as it sees fit, and will spend approximately 1 to 3 meetings researching where the town currently is in its effort to provide fair and unbiased policing services. So spend a quarter of a year to get your feet wet and figure out where our call volumes are concentrated and why. And then when you feel like you've effectively researched current conditions, begin meeting with the command staff from the Franklin County Sheriff's Office. The committee and FCSO will begin to formalize their partnership before the town's contract with the FCSO takes effect. And then the board will then function within its select board approved policy to be crafted and approved before the first board appointment is made. And the town manager or any staff member appointed by the manager to staff the committee will ensure that the committee is meeting its expectations as defined above. So there's a couple different breaks of accountability put in to make sure that this doesn't slip into something that doesn't meet as often.
There also is someone online, Mike, who offered to be on our police advisory board.
Yep.
Never did attend anything because we were kind of in the middle of this RFP. He's previously served on some of these type of boards. He might have some input.
Absolutely. We have one resident has to be a licensed law enforcement. I think that's important. You got to hear the perspective.
So I don't know.
But Mike, would you like to unmute and make any type of a comment?
Yeah, hi. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Yes, we can.
Excellent. So yeah, what you just read off there, Brendan, sounds fantastic. I was listening to the city council meeting where those residents got up and spoke about having their own advisory committee, and I didn't really like the direction they were going in. It almost sounded like the police would answer directly to them, and I definitely think that's the wrong approach. So I definitely agree that the Public Safety Advisory Committee should answer to the Select Board and work for the Select Board and give whatever feedback they have, but by no means should the Sheriff's Office answer directly to the Advisory Board. But I think what you read off is headed in the best direction.
Thank you, Mike.
I just had one other thought too,
Yep.
where it says 2 CEOs or board members of nonprofits. I'm wondering if at least one should be in prevention, like NCSS or Caring
Yes.
Communities, like one of those organizations that are
Absolutely.
really working.
If not
with
both.
them. Yeah.
Really, if not both, honestly.
Cause I'd hate to see, I mean, I just would love to see the nonprofits be represented by someone who has knowledge of the bigger
Right.
community prevention.
Absolutely. One if not both.
Restorative justice, that would be a great one.
We would almost want to invite somebody to represent restorative justice as an ad hoc member from the get-go, even if it wasn't a full-blown appointment. And it could very well be that the Public Safety Advisory Committee recommends as a select board that we need to come up with more funding for restorative justice and other treatment avenues. This could go in any direction. It's just that they meet monthly, they review data. That can take as little as 15 minutes. Our call volumes are pretty well similar to last year. We're not noticing anything out of the normal. Let's continue to talk about restorative justice. I mean, this could be, the idea is to build an incubator for good ideas to help provide the best possible services. So, whatever direction it heads, that's fine with me. Al, do you have a comment? What do you think?
Oh, I muted him, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we don't want that.
Background noise. Just a minute, Al. I didn't, okay. No, I think we're both touching it. I'm trying to unmute you.
Yeah, go.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think it's a good direction. What would be helpful to me to make any comments back to you is to be able to read the statement that you have produced, Brendan. Maybe you could email me a copy of that after the meeting or tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely.
So far as on a more philosophical basis, when you talk about representation, I think one, you need to consider, and I don't know how to do this equitably, but I think you need to make sure that you have gender and ethnicity representation on the board. When you talk about the nonprofits, I think most of the nonprofits are headquartered in the city, but they do cover the whole county. And I assume that that's okay with what you're suggesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Trying to pull that up here.
Well, those are my initial comments. I think it's a good start.
Appreciate it. Okay. Does anybody have anything they'd like to add, or where do we want to go? Do we want to try to turn this into a policy?
Al's
Can I
raising his
intervene?
hand.
Can I intervene again?
Absolutely.
I get it more a greater factual basis and just descriptions of really fleshing this idea out before you start writing a policy. And I agree with Mike that the sheriff's department is reportable to the town manager, and that the advisory committee is reportable to the select board to advise them on how the contract is working.
10-4.
Agreed. They're hearing you.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think you can see the head shaking thing.
Okay, so what do we want to just put it on our next agenda? I mean, we got to set some benchmarks and some goals, or we're going to fall behind this timeline pretty quickly. So how do we want to? What can we do here?
I think I'd like to just have it come back to our next select board meeting. It gives folks a chance to, now that we've talked about it, if it's something that we're hoping to engage the public with, we've talked about it a couple times. Al was hoping to take a look at it. If we need to solidify something, waiting till next meeting, would that be too late, or?
No, and if anything, I can start working on some better definitions and trying to figure the math out behind the terms.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we can try to come back with a new and improved by the August 3rd meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Al, if you check your whatever email that you sent me that thing about not being able to hear, your Comcast.net email, you've got that document.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. And if you want to give me any feedback in writing before August 3rd, please do.
Will do.
Thank you.
I might call you tomorrow.
I'll plan on it. Okay, so that sounds like a good idea. We'll come back with version 2.0 at our next meeting. It'll be pretty well the same thing, but more defined. And then we can start to nitpick it and then go from there. As long as we're appointing people in September, I think we're going to be okay. Because we want to
Police officer, does it have to be active or could it be retired police officer?
active license is what I wrote. Or active certification.
Does it have to be though?
Does it have to be? No, I'm not saying it has to be. I'm saying that's what I wrote. For the sake of writing something, that's what I wrote. Does it have to be? No.
We could get somebody who's retired.
Yeah, right.
They might have more time.
Mhm.
Yep.
Mhm.
So if we want to do that, I'll make that revision too. I'll try to make it more open than not.
Mhm.
And then I want to definitely pick up on Jessica's point and make sure that if not both of the nonprofits are somehow representative of our partners in treating an opioid epidemic.
You know, it certainly would be nice if, through this advisory board, if we reduce the head count from the sheriff's department or whoever, and we would share that funding with,
Yeah, if we could get away with less hours
yeah.
because
and
we're providing
share what our savings would be.
start spending more money on treatment and restorative and
Whatever-
whatever the models are.
Whatever it is, it's gonna help, you know?
Right. Community-minded, pragmatic, common sense oriented.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a great first step.
Mhm.
Okay, so if anybody wants to email me their comments after any specific recommendations, I'd be thrilled. I need help with that. Does anybody have any other business?
I just wanted to speak to one thing. I know we all received Dave Schoenfeld's letter, and he also had it published as an editorial.
Schofield.
Oh, Schofield, yeah,
I'm like,
sorry.
I don't know.
That's someone else. And he was just bringing up the points that we kind of know what sidewalk projects we might want to move forward, and maybe it's time to ask the community if they're willing to bond for sidewalks. So I agree with a lot of what he had in his letter, and I know we've been talking about sidewalks. Even before I was on the board, there was that big community survey saying people wanted more sidewalks and more rec paths, and I don't know, we've never asked them if they're willing to pay extra for that amenity.
Well, I
Or
think,
delegate some of the local option tax money.
yeah, the capital improvement
Which we
plan
did.
already has
That's
already kind of planned that between grants, any sidewalk ordinance that we might have, and what we've got in capital improvement, or in the local options tax. So at least now with the capital improvement plan, there wouldn't even be a need to bond, but if we wanted to go beyond what we kind of have funds for, then maybe then we would want to talk about that.
Or
Like
bond.
a project like Route 7 North, I mean, that's gonna be
That's gonna be,
$1 million. That
yeah,
would take a really long time to
right.
get
Well, you
that
can-
amount of
Yeah.
money.
You can
Yeah.
do either a tax anticipation note and use, if you've got $100,000 a year, nobody's telling you can't ask voters and designate 50,000 towards debt payments.
Mhm.
If you wanna capitalize it and take a low interest rate and,
We can just do that?
well, no, we'd have to ask the voters.
Okay,
But
but
to,
explain where the money's
we,
coming from.
yeah, I mean, we
Okay.
have 100,000 a year in here,
Mhm.
we're saying take 30 to pay for this bond, which raises this much to do this much work.
Okay.
And then we're not raising taxes by doing it, we're following the CIP,
Okay,
so,
let's try to keep it on the radar.
absolutely.
Yep.
So,
Another thing for other business, I don't know we've had lots of technical issues today. So, and issues with folks being able to hear us or us being able to hear them. I didn't know if we need to think about whether the in-person format is the best fit, or if we need to think about if we're all on Zoom, then there's no issues with setting up a microphone and whether the AC's on or not, and, I don't know, I just want to throw that out there again, that's always an option. The city's still doing it by Zoom at this point, so, you know, is that something that we would need to consider just
The
to?
cities, Jonathan could attest, their Zoom meeting last Monday had more technical issues in the first 10 minutes than we've had all night.
Really?
It was
With
rough.
everyone on Zoom?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, because there's a lot of feedback, a lot of council members. One council member was using 2 devices and had both microphones on, so it created a loop for everybody. It was really,
Yeah.
I mean, if we made a change, I almost would want to discuss with the complex and do like a socially distanced meeting, allowing for the public to be able to attend in person in a tennis court. Something that could have fit 50 people, but then
Spread out.
use a PA system. Use the new garage even. We could do that. We could try, I mean, I'm not saying that if we do it, we're gonna do it for every meeting, but we could try it and see what happens.
I'd vote on the complex, because if you've been into the garage lately, we are using our space. I know it sounded like we have a lot of wide open spaces, but we are using almost all of that space.
Our director was eager to show off his new digs.
I know he was, and we still are actually, but
I think we could look, how does the board feel about the idea of trying to do something like that? Spacing chairs like 8-10 feet apart, maybe doing, I mean, when we also did an in-person meeting with the city council for the MRI. Jonathan and I went to that. It was on a Thursday night, and they had the whole auditorium with chairs spread wide out. And there was quite a few people there. It wasn't nearly full, but people attended in person, probably more so than what listened on the internet. And we were spread apart. They had a PA system for speakers. It worked out fairly well.
and that was where again?
The city hall
Okay.
in the auditorium.
So we don't have any of that kind of equipment.
No, a certain high school that probably could figure out how to help us. Tech center or something.
Yep.
But I mean, dude, I don't want to like unilaterally come in and say that I'm going to work with Alan and try this if it's something that makes people uncomfortable. I'm all for trying to set something up by August 3rd even. I mean, because this obviously is not the best way. Look at Al right now. He can't hear us.
It's horrible.
So
No, he's trying to hear us. Can you hear us at all, Al?
Very, very little. I can't follow any of the conversations. I pick up bits and pieces, but not the whole thing.
when we went through, there was somebody doing a list, a spreadsheet of everyone who came in, their name, their contact info, contact tracing.
Yeah.
And somebody was from the city fire department. I think it was Matt Mulheron was checking temperatures with a non-touch. So we could easily set something like that up and either have it be us who staffs it somehow, or we could pay a little overtime to maybe DPW to have someone there for at least an hour to take temperatures.
Let's ask Al, see if he would come to an in-person.
Okay, Al, question for you. Can you hear me?
Yes?
If we were to do a meeting at the new garage or at the complex in the tennis court and socially distance the chairs and check temperatures at the door and take information for contact tracing, would you attend an in-person meeting? As soon as
Everybody was mandated to wear a mask.
Oh, that goes without saying, yeah.
Yes, I would come. Also, don't forget SATEC as a place to meet. It might be cheaper than the Collins Curley.
Yeah, so what do we think? I mean, Alan, do you think we could do that on the 3rd and try it? If it's a lot of work for you, we won't do it again. We'll go somewhere else.
I think if you're staying socially distanced, you don't have to wear your mask either, because I think if you weren't wearing your mask here tonight, a lot of people would hear you.
I mean, I would be concerned about being in an enclosed space with particulates without a mask.
You'd mandate the mask all the time. Maybe we could do a public comment area way away from people where people could lift their mask to make a comment. I don't know what the science is behind that, but if we've got everybody who talked has a microphone, it worked out really well, and people were, everybody but the presenters were wearing masks. And they weren't wearing masks because they all stay in the same hotel rooms and drive together all the time. And that was but they were a ways away from everyone.
Maybe it's worth exploring, and if we can't get the audio visual to work, or not visual perhaps, but the audio to work, because, you know, some folks like Stantec, maybe they won't be able to be there in person, so we'd have to still have a screen available to pull up their slide decks potentially. So if we can't make it work, I think we could probably find other ways to make this space work, but I just wanted to throw it out there. I mean, Zoom isn't always ideal, but it is a very socially distant way of being able to have everyone involved. You know, but it does have its own problems. But and no masks required. Yeah.
Brendan?
Yeah.
Just one follow-up to Aaron's comments. It would seem to me, whatever you decide to do and however you set this meeting up, that it be consistent both with the CDC guidelines and also with our health department guidelines.
Absolutely. So we'd have to cap the number of people. Yeah, we'll have to review the guidelines and see what's in play. We'll get the most current copy as soon as tomorrow and start playing.
The hard part there is it changes on weekly.
Well, definitely.
I mean, definitely, like right now, I'm nervous about it. We're planning an 8-3 meeting, and the guidelines could change Friday. They could change next Friday. So just have to be flexible that we might have to just come back here or do a Zoom. That's all. It's.
Well, we'll always have the Zoom meeting.
I don't know if we always will.
Even if we do it in a public space, we'll have to have it as an option because if we're capping people.
Then that might we don't have a TV in the DPW.
Yeah, so then the AV stuff might get really tricky to have set up, and then if we're in the garage and we have more people and we're socially distant, the microphone's gonna be even worse for the Zoom folks.
Yeah,
it's gonna be even worse.
Well, how did the city do it? I mean, they had it all set up the same way. If they can do it, we can too.
We've got the AV equipment.
I'm sure we can find out what they have, but that's why I mentioned that it's not.
Yeah, they use Northwest Access to do it all. Because you can do a Facebook Live through Northwest Access too. And then, yeah, I think that's what they did.
Yeah,
I'll contact them and see what.
That the guy works for.
Yeah. Yeah, let's flesh this out a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll see what we can and can't do. Try to do something that makes more sense than what we're doing now, because this isn't working. Okay. Anybody have any other business? So we are about to head into executive session for 2 contractual matters, one being the police services contract. There won't be a decision coming out of that, will there, Carrie? We've got to take language back to their attorney.
Correct.
So no decision there.
We always say there's likely to be no decision there. Say.
Likely, but you never. Then we got a personnel matter, and then a legal, and then another contractual. We got a busy meeting after the meeting. Well, it's still during the meeting, but. So if anybody wants to make any motions.
I'll make a motion to go into executive session to discuss legal, contractual, or personnel issues where premature general public knowledge of the subject matter would place it down or person involved at a substantial disadvantage. Also further move to make a motion to enter into executive session to discuss legal, contractual, or personnel issues under the provisions of Title I, Section 313A1 of Vermont statutes, and to invite the town manager.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Bye, Al.
Good night, everyone.
See ya.